The rain-slicked streets of Boston gleamed like shattered glass under the sodium lamps as Daniel slammed the car door, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not like this. Not pretending to be something he wasn't. His beta scent masked by a cheap suppressant's chemical haze that made his skin crawl. But Joshua Hale, the unyielding director of Hawthorne University, had become an obsession, a gravitational pull Daniel couldn't escape. And tonight, in the shadow of the ivy-cloaked admin building, he was done hiding. Joshua's office window flickered like a beacon, the man himself silhouetted against the warm spill of lamplight, tall, broad-shouldered, with that salt-and-pepper hair-cropped military short, a beta through and through, all sharp edges and unyielding control. Daniel's breath hitched as he rehearsed the lie one last time. "I'm just a lost Omega freshman, sir. Need your guidance." But the words dissolved into the downpour, replaced by a bolder impulse that surged through him like lightning, flirtation, raw and reckless, the kind that could unravel everything. He pushed through the revolving doors, water dripping from his jacket, and strode to the elevator, fingers trembling as he punched the button for the 5th floor. The ding was a death knell, but Daniel stepped out anyway, his boots echoing down the marble hall like accusations. Joshua's door loomed, half ajar, and there he was leaning over his desk, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with quiet strength. Daniel knocked once, softly, then bolder, his voice a husky murmur that betrayed him before he could speak. "Director Hale? I think I need you more than directions." Joshua's head snapped up, those piercing gray eyes locking onto Daniel's like a vice. The air thickened, charged with something primal, unspoken, the beta's nostrils flaring subtly as if scenting the fraud beneath the suppressants. Daniel held his ground, stepping closer, his gaze dropping deliberately to Joshua's lips before flicking back up, a challenge wrapped in velvet invitation. "It's late," Joshua said, voice low and gravel rough. But he didn't move away, didn't dismiss the intruder with the curt efficiency Daniel had seen him wield in faculty meetings. Instead, his hand twitched on the desk, fingers curling as if fighting the urge to reach out. And that's when it shattered, Daniel's facade cracking under the weight of his own audacity, a laugh bubbling up unbidden, wild and freeing. "Fuck it," he whispered, closing the distance until their breaths mingled, the heat of Joshua's body a siren's call against the chill seeping from his soaked clothes. Joshua's hand shot out, gripping Daniel's wrist, not to push away, but to pull him nearer, the beta's control fraying at the edges like a storm about to break. In that suspended heartbeat, Daniel knew this was no longer pretense. It was surrender. The office smelled of aged leather and polished oak, undercut by the faint, illicit tang of Daniel's falsified Omega pheromones, floral and yielding, a lie he'd bought from a shady apothecary in the North End, the kind of place where alphas and omegas alike went to cheat fate. Daniel had never been Omega material, born beta like his father, raised in the steel mills of Pittsburgh with calluses on his hands and skepticism in his veins. He'd learned early that the world sorted you into boxes you couldn't escape. Alphas led, omegas submitted, betas existed in the gray, facilitating, never claiming the spotlight. But Joshua Hale? He was the epitome of beta restraint. A man who'd clawed his way to directing one of New England's most prestigious liberal arts colleges without a single alpha naught or omega heat to propel him. Videos of his speeches had hooked Daniel first, those measured words on equity, on breaking cycles of suppression in academia, Then the man himself, glimpsed at orientation, commanding the stage, eyes scanning the crowd like he could see straight through to the fractures in your soul. Now, with Joshua's grip firm on his wrist, Daniel felt those fractures widen. "Who the hell are you?" Joshua demanded, but his voice lacked conviction, laced instead with a hunger that mirrored Daniel's own. The beta's thumb brushed the pulse point at Daniel's inner arm, sending sparks skittering up his spine. Daniel leaned in, lips brushing the shell of Joshua's ear, the flirtation no longer bold but inevitable. "Someone who's tired of pretending," he murmured, the words a confession wrapped in seduction. Joshua's free hand came up, cupping the back of Daniel's neck, not gentle but possessive, tilting his head back to expose the vulnerable line of his throat. No bite marks there, no claim from some faceless alpha. Daniel was unmarked territory, and the realization hung between them like smoke. Their mouths crashed together then, a collision of need and denial, Joshua's lips firm and demanding, tasting of black coffee and restraint finally snapped. Daniel melted into it, hands fisting in the crisp white shirt, pulling until buttons strained. The desk edge bit into Daniel's hip as Joshua pressed him back, a low growl rumbling from the beta's chest, rare, primal, the sound of a man who'd spent years building walls now dismantling them brick by heated brick. Papers scattered to the floor, a forgotten grant proposal fluttering like a white flag of surrender. Daniel's fingers tangled in Joshua's hair, tugging just hard enough to elicit a hiss, and Joshua retaliated by nipping at his lower lip, drawing a bead of blood that they both tasted, metallic and binding. But beneath the fire, doubt flickered, Joshua pulling back just enough to search Daniel's face, eyes narrowing. "You're no Omega," he said. Not a question. The words rough as he inhaled deeply, sifting through the artificial veil. Daniel's heart stuttered, the lie exposed in the humid air between them, but instead of retreat, he doubled down, pressing his body flush against Joshua's, feeling the hard evidence of mutual desire straining against wool trousers. "Does it matter?" Daniel challenged, voice breathy, defiant. "Or do you want me anyway?" Joshua's laugh was bitter, edged with something darker, betrayal, perhaps, at the deception, or recognition of his own hypocrisy. He'd built his career on transparency, on dismantling the very hierarchies that now ensnared them both. Yet here he was, the beta director, entangled with a fraudulent student in his sanctum. His hands roamed lower, gripping Daniel's hips with bruising force, lifting him onto the desk in one fluid motion that spoke of suppressed strength. "It matters," Joshua growled, but his actions contradicted, mouth trailing fire down Daniel's neck, sucking marks that would bloom purple by morning. Daniel arched, a moan escaping unfiltered, the sound echoing off the bookshelves lined with tomes on social justice and queer theory, ironic witnesses to their unraveling. They moved like combatants, shedding clothes in frantic tugs. Daniel's drenched shirt peeled away to reveal lean muscle honed from late-night runs along the Charles River. Joshua's vest discarded to expose a chest dusted with silver hair. Scars faint from a life before academia, whispers of a past Joshua never shared. Skin on skin, the contrast was electric. Daniel's youth and fire against Joshua's seasoned restraint, beta to beta in a world that deemed them incomplete. Joshua's fingers traced the ridges of Daniel's ribs, dipping lower, teasing the waistband of jeans that clung like a second skin. "Tell me why," Joshua demanded between kisses, voice muffled against collarbone. Why the lie? Daniel hesitated, the truth a thorn in his throat. Because you don't see betas, he admitted, the words spilling out as Joshua's hand slipped inside, stroking with deliberate slowness that made stars burst behind Daniel's eyelids. You see potential leaders, lost omegas. But not us. Not me. It was half confession, half accusation, born from months of watching Joshua mentor alpha prodigies and omega prodigies. His office door always open, but somehow never for the invisible ones like Daniel, a grad student in sociology scraping by on TA gigs and suppressed longing. Joshua stilled, hand withdrawing just enough to make Daniel whine in protest, gray eyes stormy with conflict. That's not, he started, but the protest died as Daniel surged forward, capturing his mouth again, pouring all his frustration and desire into the kiss. They tumbled to the leather couch in the corner, a relic from Joshua's days as a provost elsewhere, now creaking under their weight. Joshua pinned him down, bodies aligning in a rhythm as old as time, thrusts shallow and teasing at first, building to something fiercer, more desperate. Daniel's nails raked down Joshua's back, leaving red trails that would sting come dawn, a map of this forbidden territory they'd claimed. Climax hit like a thunderclap, Joshua first, burying his face in Daniel's neck with a guttural curse, body shuddering as release claimed him, hot and unfiltered. Daniel followed seconds later, the world narrowing to the pulse of Joshua's heartbeat against his own, a shared vulnerability that felt like absolution. They lay tangled, breaths sinking in the aftermath, the rain pattering against the window like hesitant applause. Joshua's fingers carded through Daniel's damp hair. Gentle now, the beta's walls rebuilt but cracked, letting slivers of light through. Your trouble, Joshua murmured, lips brushing Daniel's temple, a smile ghosting his words. Daniel chuckled, low and sated, tracing the line of Joshua's jaw. You have no idea, but even as warmth bloomed in his chest, a shadow lingered, the lie that had started this, the hierarchies that would tear it apart. For tonight, though, in the hush of the office, it was enough. They were enough. Morning light filtered through the blinds like accusatory fingers, painting stripes across the rumpled couch where Daniel stirred, Joshua's arm heavy across his waist. The beta slept like the dead, face softened in repose, the stern lines of directorship erased by exhaustion and something tender, unspoken. Daniel slipped free carefully, padding to the desk to gather his clothes, the suppressant's wrapper crinkling under his foot, a damning artifact. He pocketed it quickly, guilt twisting like a knife. This wasn't just a hookup. It was a bridge burned before it was built, a flirtation that had escalated into intimacy neither could afford. He dressed in silence, stealing glances at Joshua's form, the broad chest rising and falling, the faint stubble shadowing his jaw. Daniel's own reflection in the darkened window mocked him. Tousled hair, kiss-swollen lips, eyes bright with the recklessness of last night. A beta pretending to be omega to catch a beta's eye, pathetic. Or poetic, he wasn't sure anymore. The clock on the wall ticked mercilessly toward 8 a.m., when faculty would arrive, buzzing with agendas and oblivious to the scandal brewing in their midst. Joshua stirred then, gray eyes blinking open, sharpening instantly on Daniel. Leaving already? His voice was sleep-rough, laced with amusement that didn't reach his gaze. Wary now, assessing. Daniel forced a grin, leaning down for a quick kiss that lingered too long, tasting of regret. Early class. Psych seminar on identity suppression. Ironic, right? Joshua's hand caught his, thumb stroking the knuckles, a gesture both anchoring and interrogative. We need to talk about this. The lie, the everything. Daniel's stomach plummeted. Talk meant dissection, meant the fantasy shattering under the weight of reality, power imbalances, university policies on faculty-student relations, the very Omegaverse codes that branded their connection as aberration. Later, he promised, slipping away before Joshua could press. The door clicked shut behind him, the hallway empty and echoing, his footsteps a retreat. Outside, the quad bustled with students shaking off hangovers, alphas striding with purpose, omegas clustering in scented packs, betas like him blending into the foliage-gold autumn backdrop. He made it to his cramped dorm in Alston by subway, the T's rattle a counterpoint to his racing thoughts. His roommate, Mia, an unapologetic alpha with a sociology thesis on queer subcultures, eyed him suspiciously over her coffee. You look like you got railed by a freight train. Spill. Daniel deflected with a laugh, stripping off his clothes for a scalding shower, but the marks on his skin told tales. Fingerprints on hips, a hickey blooming like a bruise on his collarbone. Under the spray, he scrubbed at them, willing the evidence away, but the ache between his legs, the phantom press of Joshua's body, lingered like a brand. Class dragged Dr. Ellis droning on Freudian slips and repressed desires, Daniel's pen doodling Joshua's initials in the margins until the ink bled. By noon, his phone buzzed, an unknown number. This is Joshua. Meet me at the boathouse, 5 p.m. We talk, or I report the suppressant's violation. The words hit like ice water, betrayal's first sting. Report, after last night? Daniel's fingers trembled as he typed back. You wouldn't. The reply was swift. Try me. Or come. The boathouse crouched at the edge of the Charles, a weathered relic from Hawthorne's rowing glory days, its red paint peeling like old blood. Daniel arrived early, nerves frayed, the river's lap against the dock a mocking lullaby. Joshua emerged from the path like a specter, trench coat flapping in the wind, face carved from granite. No pleasantries. He closed the distance, backing Daniel against the splintered wall, hands braced on either side of his head. Who sent you? Joshua demanded, voice a whip crack. The board? Some rival dean sniffing for dirt on my progressive policies. Daniel's jaw dropped, indignation flaring. Sent me? Jesus. Joshua, this isn't a conspiracy. It's me, Daniel Reyes, your TA from last semester's gender studies elective. I sat in the back row. Remember, the one who argued against Omega essentialism until you shut me down. Recognition dawned slowly in Joshua's eyes, mingled with something sharper, hurt, perhaps, at being played. Reyes, he echoed, stepping back as if burned. The beta firebrand. Pretending to be Omega 2. What? Seduce a confession? Expose me? The accusation landed like a slap, Daniel's cheeks burning despite the chill. Expose you? I wanted you, you arrogant prick. Not your job, not your secrets, just the man who talks about breaking chains while chaining himself up. He shoved past, chest heaving, but Joshua's hand on his arm spun him back, the grip familiar now, laced with desperation. Then why the games? Why not just ask me out like a normal? Joshua cut off, the word normal hanging absurd in their abnormal world. where betas didn't court, didn't claim. Because normals don't get noticed, Daniel spat, tears pricking unexpectedly. In your perfect little hierarchy, I'm wallpaper. Last night was the only way I could touch you. Vulnerability cracked his voice, and Joshua's resolve fractured, pulling him into a crushing embrace, mouths meeting in a kiss that tasted of salt and fury. They sank to the worn benches inside, hands frantic, reclaiming what words had wounded. Joshua's fingers deft on Daniel's fly, Daniel's teeth grazing the beta's throat in retaliation. It was angry sex, reclaiming sex, thrusts punctuated by gasps and half-formed apologies, the river's murmur drowning their cries. Afterward, spent and shivering in the cooling air, Joshua traced the curve of Daniel's spine, voice soft against his hair. I see you now. God help me. I do. They dressed in silence. The boathouse a confessional booth. But as they stepped out into the fading light, Joshua's phone shattered the fragile peace. A text from the dean. Emergency board meeting. Rumors of misconduct. Your office? Joshua's face paled, and Daniel's blood ran cold. Someone had seen. Or smelled. The lie had legs now, racing ahead to devour them both. Word spread through Hawthorne like wildfire through dry tinder. Whispers in the dining hall. Side eyes in the library stacks. A viral anonymous post on the student forum. Director Hale caught with Mystery Omega in his office. Power trip or heat haze. Daniel scrolled through it in the dead of night. Stomach churning. The photo grainy but unmistakable. Silhouettes through the blinds. Bodies entwined. Mia, bless her, had stormed in earlier, alpha temper flaring. You're fucking the director? Daniel, that's career suicide. He'd waved her off, but her words echoed, a harbinger of the storm. Joshua called a lockdown meeting in his office the next day, door barred against the horde of reporters sniffing at the gates. Daniel slipped in through the service entrance, heart hammering, finding Joshua pacing like a caged wolf, sleeves rolled up. "I ask you." "It's out," Joshua said flatly, tossing his phone onto the desk, the article from the campus rag. Headline screaming beta director's forbidden fling, Omegaverse ethics in question. Daniel snatched it, scanning the vitriol, accusations of grooming, exploitation, the suppressants twisted into proof of predatory intent. "They think I'm the victim," Daniel said, incredulous. "Me, the liar." Joshua's laugh was hollow, rubbing his temples. "In their narrative, yes. Alphas protect. Omegas submit. Betas like us, we're the villains for blurring lines." He crossed to Daniel, hands framing his face, thumbs brushing away an errant tear. "But I won't let them touch you. Resign. Or fight." The choice hung heavy, Joshua's eyes pleading for solidarity, for the depth they'd glimpsed in stolen moments. Daniel chose fight, because surrender wasn't in his blood. They drafted a joint statement that afternoon, Joshua's measured prose laced with Daniel's raw passion, outing the pretense, reframing it as a cry against rigid dynamics, a romance born of mutual invisibility. Leaked to a sympathetic queer blog, it went nuclear shares, debates, alphas and omegas alike chiming in on the hypocrisy of a system that sidelined betas. Protests erupted on the quad, rainbow flags waving alongside signs reading betas deserve love too, the air electric with chants that drowned the detractors. But betrayal lurked in the shadows. Late that week, as Daniel navigated a gauntlet of stairs to his seminar, a figure detached from the crowd, Ethan, Joshua's golden boy protege, an alpha trust fund kid with eyes like shards of glass. Bold move, Reyes, Ethan sneered, voice oily. But Hale's done. Board vote tomorrow. Pity you dragged him down with your little charade. Daniel froze. The implication slimy, you did this. Ethan's scent. Musk and entitlement, wafted closer, a veiled threat. He was mine to mentor. Now, he's collateral. The pieces clicked. Ethan, overlooked for the deanship Joshua had quietly championed for a beta outsider. Ethan, with access to Joshua's calendar, his office keys. The anonymous post. The timed leak, it reeked of sabotage. A jealous alpha's revenge wrapped in moral outrage. Daniel confronted Joshua that night in the director's loft off-campus. A converted mill overlooking the Mystic. All exposed brick and bookshelves groaning under weighty volumes. Ethan, Daniel accused, pacing the Persian rug. Joshua nursing a scotch by the fireplace. The beta's face darkened, confirming it without words. I suspected. Turned him down for promotion, said he wasn't ready. Now this. Rage boiled over. Daniel's fist slamming the mantel. The crystal decanter rattling. He'll ruin you. Us. Joshua rose, pulling him close. The scent of peat smoke and resolve grounding. Let him try. I faced worse. Divorce from an Omega who couldn't handle a beta husband. Tenure battles where they called me safe, like it was a slur. His lips brushed Daniel's forehead. A vow. You're worth the fight. They made love by firelight then. Slow and deliberate. Mapping each scar and sigh. Joshua's fingers reverent on Daniel's hips. Daniel's mouth worshipful on the beta's chest. Drawing out moans that echoed like confessions. It was romantic. Humanistic in its rawness. Two men, deemed incomplete, completing each other in the flicker of flames. Afterward, curled in sheets that smelled of them, Joshua whispered dreams of sabbaticals in Provincetown, co-authoring manifestos on beta liberation, a life beyond Hawthorne's walls. But dawn brought the axe. The board convened in the grand hall, mahogany-paneled and echoing with judgment, alphas in suits dominating the table like feudal lords. Joshua stood at the podium, Daniel in the gallery shadows, heart in his throat. Ethan's testimony dripped venom. Director Hale preyed on vulnerability, using his position to coerce. Gasps rippled. But Joshua's rebuttal was steel, presenting emails, witnesses to his mentorship of all students. The joint statement projected like a shield. This isn't about ethics, he thundered, voice carrying the weight of years suppressed. It's about fear, of a beta loving boldly, of hierarchies crumbling. The vote teetered, ties broken by the sole Omega trustee, her eyes soft with recognition. Acquitted, she declared, and the room exhaled. Ethan slunk out, face ashen, his betrayal exposed when Daniel's anonymous tip to HR unearthed forged documents. Jubilation followed, hugs in the hall, toasts in the faculty lounge. But for Daniel and Joshua, it was quieter. A walk along the Charles at twilight, hands brushing, the city lights winking like conspirators. Yet climax loomed, unbidden. Weeks later, as snow dusted the quad, Daniel's heat, false, triggered by stress and proximity, hit like a freight train, suppressants failing under the strain. He collapsed in the library, feverish, world blurring, Joshua finding him amid stacks of forbidden texts. Panic etched the beta's face as he bundled Daniel into his car. racing to the loft, where suppressants wouldn't suffice. "Stay with me," Joshua begged, stripping fevered clothes, his touch cooling the blaze. In delirium, truths poured, Daniel's fear of mediocrity, Joshua's loneliness post-divorce, the betrayal they'd survived forging something unbreakable. Joshua held him through the night, no not to bind but will alone, whispering endearments in the dark. Mine, always, beta to beta. Dawn broke with Daniel cooling, Joshua's arms a haven, the crisis a catalyst for deeper vows. Spring thawed the betrayal's chill, Ethan expelled in disgrace, Hawthorne's policies rewritten under Joshua's steady hand, beta inclusion mandates, anti-suppressant amnesty. Daniel graduated top of his class, thesis on invisibility as revolution, dedicated obliquely to J.H. Their romance bloomed public now. Stolen kisses in the quad, weekends in the Berkshires, hikes where hands linked without fear. One evening, atop a hill overlooking the valley, Joshua dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but a simple band of woven silver, beta-crafted. "No alphas, no omegas, just us," he said, voice thick. Daniel pulled him up, kissing him fierce under the stars. Yes, to all of it, it was humanistic triumph. Love not in spite of their natures, but because of them flawed, fierce, forever. In the years that followed, Hawthorne became a beacon, Joshua's directorship a legacy of equity, Daniel his partner in lectures and life. Betrayals faded to footnotes, conflicts to growth, the flirtation that started it all a spark that ignited change. They weren't heroes, just two betas who dared to be seen, together, unapologetic, whole.